Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, welcome, and for those of you who have been here before, welcome back. So I have mentioned a few times that I wanted to make a tips video for decluttering and organizing, and I guess just cleaning up your own spaces. Now I want to put a disclaimer in here that I am not a decluttering or organizing expert. I have no training, nothing like that. I'm not sure if that's even a thing, to be honest with you. I just do this because I love doing it. I love helping the people around me, and honestly, I hate clutter. So that is how I got here. So for anybody that hasn't been here before, I make decluttering, organizing videos. I do a lot of work with a few select individuals, and then sometimes I am working with other people outside of the small group I usually stick with. Now, one of the projects I am working on is a very large house declutter. So if you haven't seen any of those videos before, I will have them linked right up here for you guys to click on and go check them out. I just do other decluttering in my own space, which is now mine and my sister's space. If you have been following along with me, I have recently moved. So there is now 4 women in one house together. So it has been a challenge trying to get everything organized, considering two of the small people in this house are tiny humans, and 2 are big, almost functioning adults. I do want to just say before we get too far into the video that I do have a bit of a head cold. So if I look, I don't know, squinty or congested or sound a little off, it is because I have been fighting a head cold for a few days now, and it is not quite bedridden me, but it has also really drained my energy. So that is why this week's video is not a huge decluttering video, because honestly my energy level is just gone this week. So I'm just gonna sit here and talk to you guys. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. First off, my number 1 tip is going to be just to start. So I know it can be very discouraging when you have large amounts of clutter and you've got just so much stuff surrounding you. I know some people's spaces are not as extreme as others. I have worked on quite a few of the more extreme cases, and honestly, just starting is the main key. You need to decide that you are going to do it, and then honestly, just start. Start anywhere. You can, if you are feeling overwhelmed by the process, I would definitely suggest pick somewhere small, like a junk drawer, even like a sock drawer, just something that is easily obtainable that you can complete start to finish. And then that way it'll be like a small win and a small little chunk of motivation to help you keep going through the rest of your spaces. The other thing I would suggest, if you are struggling or you feel like you do not have the time to be decluttering, set an alarm. Do a timer for say 10-15 minutes. Pick a space in your home and just focus on that for those 10-15 minutes. That way you have a portion of it done, started, and if you do that every day, you are going to get so much decluttering done. Doing it 10-15 minutes at a time versus maybe doing it for a couple hours one day and then being discouraged and not going back. It's more beneficial to do 10 minutes here and there when you have a couple minutes than to try and plan it all for one day, not get it finished, and then get upset about it. Now, my tip number 2 is to ask yourself these questions. So if you have an item that you are struggling with letting go of and you're not sure why, I would usually suggest holding it or like having it with you, obviously, in the moment. But the questions that I would suggest that you ask yourself is, do I need this item? Is there a purpose for it in my home? Is it gonna be something that gives me, is it useful to have? Is it something that I actually, and will I use it? So I'm not sure if this is a good example or not, but for some reason, I always feel the need to buy a garlic press whenever I see one. I do not own a garlic press, nor will I own a garlic press, because honestly, is it something I need? Maybe. That's the first question. Second question, will I use it? No, I won't use it. So why would I own one? It just doesn't make sense. So that question can be a little difficult for some people because it could be something like an appliance that most people have maybe, but are you going to use it? You need to be very specific to your needs and whether or not it's going to benefit you and your life. Next question. This is more for items that maybe do not have a physical use. They are more like sentimental or decor type items. Where will you put it? So if you have, say, this big statue or this beautiful, I don't know, little decor things like this, they can be very cute and very wonderful to have around your home, make it feel homey, make it your own space. But there is a point where you can start overlapping those types of things, and then there's no point in having that much. It's cluttered, you can't even see them. It's just too much for the space. So if you have something you are struggling with, ask yourself, where are you going to put this item? If you have a spot for it or a spot in mind that you would like it to go in the future, then good. If you cannot think of anywhere to keep this item, maybe reconsider keeping it at all. And the last one, which I think is pretty common, especially these days, is the question of, does this item bring me joy? If you pick that item up and you're only keeping it because you feel like you should have it, you feel like everyone has one, or there's some kind of connection you have to it that makes you feel like you need to hold on to it, just think about solely you and how that item makes you feel. Does it bring you joy, or are you just holding on to it because you feel like you need to? Make sure the items that you keep in your space are things that are going to make you happy and contribute to your space, not clutter it up. Okay, so number 3 is going to be, don't feel bad about having a maybe pile. I know sometimes when I take on big projects, there can be a lot of struggle with holding on to items versus getting rid of them. And I know sometimes people feel guilty for not being able to answer those questions. Does it bring me joy? I'm not sure. I think so. Or maybe you're kind of in between. Yes, I want to keep it. It brings me joy. I have nowhere to put it. What am I going to do with this item? And honestly, if you cannot let it go, that is okay. It is totally fine to have a maybe pile. Decluttering is not a one and done process. You're going to be doing this multiple times, probably for the rest of your life if you are continuing to want to have a decluttered space. Anybody that has been following along with my decluttering journey in the crafty grandma's house, as she has been called recently, you would know that we have gone through some of these spaces in her home multiple times. And the first run through, some of the items there was absolutely no way she was going to part with. And then we went through again and she realizes the space she could have, and she really takes those questions seriously and gets rid of so much more, so much stuff that the first run through there was no way she was parting with it, and then the second run through she's ready to get rid of it, not even think twice about it. So if you have a maybe pile, don't stress about it. You're going to come back to that item multiple times. Maybe you find it a home, maybe you decide to rehome it, but don't feel guilty for being unsure about some of your items. Now, my 4th tip is for probably the bigger projects, but again, if you are setting a timer and have 10-15 minutes, this could probably be applied as well. So tip number 4 is do not micro-organize. So for the first or second or third run through of a space or a drawer or whatever you're working on, I know some people can get caught up in the micro-organizing. So separating every little thing out, making it look pretty and beautiful. Don't do that. So I find that when you start micro-organizing, when you have a large decluttering space to work on, is going to just get so overwhelming. You're going to feel like you're not making progress. Things are going to start really slowing down, and you're going to get stuck on maybe a cup of little craft knickknacks that you can't seem to move past. So if you are sitting there spending half an hour, 10 minutes, whatever it may be, trying to micro-organize, say, one box of craft supplies, that is going to suck up so much of your energy. For the big declutters in the first run through, I highly suggest, if you have items that need to be micro-organized, start off with just having like piles. So piles of things that are similar or the same, going to end up in the same area. Maybe that box still needs to be organized further, but for now, when you have a large amount of stuff, have your box that's staying, have similar items, have them all set out, and then as you continue to go, you can go through, find those homes and put those things away. But for the first couple run-throughs, don't get stuck on micro-organizing, because that is going to suck up so much of your energy, and you are probably not going to get very far if you start doing that off the bat. Now, tip number 5 may be easy for some people and it may be not, and that is to find somebody to keep you accountable. Now, you do not need somebody to walk you through the process and hold your hand the entire time. I know some people might feel that way, but honestly, I really don't think you do. I do it with the people I work with because honestly, I love decluttering. I love helping. I know they need some support, and that is okay. If you can find somebody to come with you on the journey and support you through it and hold your hand if you need, that is wonderful. But to be accountable, even if you just tell a friend, a parent, a child, whoever it might be, okay, well, maybe not a child, depending how old your children are, but find somebody that will keep you accountable, who will ask you how the process is going, who will come and look at the progress you have made, somebody that is going to care enough to keep asking you how that process is going in your life. Now, they don't need to check on you every single day, but just knowing that you have told somebody kind of puts it out there, makes it real, and then that way you are more likely to stick to it and continue to declutter even when you don't want to, because you know there's somebody that is aware of what you're trying to do, and you're going to want them to see progress in you. Now, tip number 6 is do the easiest items first. Now, in a lot of my videos, we start with containers or boxes. So in one of the spaces I am working in, she tried very hard to get organized over many years. So one of the things that kind of nipped her in the butt was the amount of storage containers that she had collected to organize her stuff. Now, there was so many that we couldn't even organize anything because the amount of containers took up so much space that we did not have, and they weren't even being used yet. So it was just like piles of empty containers. So that was one of the first things that we did when we started decluttering, was walk into a room. Anything you see that is an empty container, remove. Anything that she could see that she already knew she was not going to keep, we went and removed that if we were able to. So start with the easiest items, make yourself some space. If there is things in there that you know are going and you choose to leave them laying around near you, that is going to give you less space to get to the things that you need to actually look at, and it is going to kind of fog up your head. You want to have as little, I guess, clutter around you while you're trying to declutter as possible. So if you know it's going, get in there, get it out, and then continue on with the rest of your stuff. Tip number 7 is to make sure you end with a clean. So if you are doing the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if you are doing a day, every time you are wrapping up your declutter session, I guess you could call it, make sure you tidy up that space. So if you are working on an entire room and you leave it like piles everywhere, maybe garbage pile, maybe a mess of boxes, every time you go near that room until you go back in it, you are not going to see any progress. You want to make sure that at the end of your decluttering session, you tidy up, you kind of put things away as much as you can, make it look as good as you possibly can without going overboard. I mean, if you're in the middle of decluttering something, you're not gonna like start scrubbing shelves and trying to put things away where you know they're not gonna stay there, but tidy the space up as much as you can without, you know, going backwards in your progress, I guess. Now, tip number 8 would be to find everything a home. So when you start, kind of decide, okay, this area is for glue sticks. This area is going to be for fabrics. This area is going to be for wood pieces. This area is going to be for knickknacks. I don't know, whatever your space looks like, make sure you have an idea of what area is for what item. So that way when you're starting to declutter and you are grouping items, you know all of the art supplies are going over here. All of the toys are going over here. All of the pajamas are going over here. And then that way, as you continue to declutter and you build those piles, you're gonna see how much of that item or like items you have, and you're gonna be able to really tell if you need to declutter more. So if you start putting art supplies in one area and then you have another art pile tucked away over here and tucked away over there, you are gonna end up with way more than you need because you're not gonna be able to actually see how much of that item you have. So try and put all the like items together so you know what you have, you know how much you have, and you know if you need to keep going through that pile. Number 9 is decluttering is a continuous process. So make sure you are setting a schedule or holding yourself accountable to come back and keep decluttering the spaces that you have worked on. If you have finished an entire room, couple months, it's gonna collect more stuff. You're gonna have to do a run through, but the more on top of it you are, the less time in the long run you'll end up decluttering. Because if you go in, you've done it already, maybe there's a few items you're not sure of, you give it a month or two, more items collect there, things get moved around, you figure out what works for you, and then you do it again. It'll be much smoother every time you run through the decluttering process. But if you decide to declutter and then maybe not declutter for a year or 2 years, when you come back to it again, it is going to be like restarting the entire process over again. You need to continually take small chunks and small run-throughs. Like I have said a zillion times on this channel, decluttering is like peeling an onion. You're always gonna have to do it in layers, and you're gonna take off the big layers first, and then gradually they're just gonna be smaller and smaller, but you have to keep doing it to make sure that it stays clear. Now, my last tip for you guys is to take the wins. So if you only manage to get a drawer done in a week, or if you manage to declutter one box that has been sitting in your closet for like 10 years, take that win. Don't let yourself get discouraged if you're not making the progress you want to be making. Any progress is good progress. So make sure you are kind of being your own cheerleader, hype yourself up. You are not going to get any joy out of this process if you are not taking the wins. So you need to be very proud of yourself for the decluttering you are doing, and then that way it will motivate you to keep going. If you do have that accountability person in your life, make sure you tell them, hey, you know that box that I've had in my closet for 10 years? I finally got through it. Maybe it only took you 3 minutes of your day, but you finally stepped up, made the time, and decluttered that one thing, and that is amazing. Anything you guys are doing, if you feel like you're struggling, whatever the case may be, if you're having a hard time, as long as you are getting through it, you are doing amazing. And I'm very proud of any one of you that is decluttering on their own and following along and getting motivation. It is very important to have something to strive for. So even the tiniest steps, the tiniest progress you make, take the win and be proud of yourself. And then of course, this is not a tip, but I just want to make sure that I let you guys know to have fun. Decluttering can be very stressful, it can be very overwhelming, but try and have fun with it. I know it is not everybody's cup of tea to be decluttering their stuff. Nobody wants to do it, but turn on your music, turn on a podcast, get a friend over, do what you have to do, and just get through it. You guys can do it. And I know once everything is done, even though it's never actually done, you're gonna feel so much better and so much lighter for just getting even a few things out. And if you get tons of stuff out, that is just amazing.